Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Is the human race a game for off-world entities? Hear me out. Communication, thoughts, and action potential are neurons firing. Today, only a few decades after neuroscience began its path, we can, through the usage of electrodes, listen and interpret human thoughts. We've learned to take that firing energy and convert it to an actual programming language. This is published information, and I don't include the Fed research, which is said to be 30+ years ahead of published research. Communication tech in whatever kind, applied in whatever context, always ends up being wireless. Look at your phone for reference. All humans, based upon the neurons' constant firing in the brain, also generate a magnetic field with a specific frequency pattern. The input from the world, which your brain processes along with its own thoughts, trying to navigate among the input results in a local input. Your actions. It also generates a communication field. Results meaning, if not already soon, human thoughts, will be information open season for whoever has the tech. Is the tech already enabled? Look at the influx of alien programming our dear feds are propagating these last few years. Examples being the many pieces of footage they actually confirm being true. Still serving military personnel running around on mainstream media and podcasts like Rogan informing the public about aliens. Government enabling cooperation with big media profiles like Tom DeLonge, who has many followers on social media. They are obviously training us, making us aware of what will be public information soon. That aliens are real, have been here, and in contact with the government. Aliens following some actual real whistleblowers like Bob Lazar, a genius who released info about actual elements which only recently been added to our atomic table, went into hiding after talking to journalists. Meaning when he released his info, he went into hiding, never seeked riches for his information, never tried to make a name for himself. He witnessed crafts whose propulsion was completely wireless, no jumpers or cables, no visible exhaust, etc. Logic should indicate we humans are at least, if not more, being listened to. I'm not referring to the signals our TV, radios, etc. are producing out to the cosmos. I'm referring to tech aimed at planet Earth, where aliens can completely unhindered listen to our very thoughts. Every single one of us. What say you? Are humans an experiment?
Yes. The zookeepers don't like the caged animals getting smart about their doings, so a thread like yours is an easy target for them. People like you are awakening to reality. The zookeepers want you back to sleep. They know you are fragile right now since it's all new to you. Once you learn the ropes, there's no need to hide from them. The game is rigged and has always been. Be at peace with yourself.
I always thought Earth is like an elaborate Sims game, and we are all AI entities.
One only needs to manipulate the top layer, for that layer is the governing layer among all other entities in the game.
So what's the top layer, the entire monad at once in and of itself?
Let me use the brain, humanity, as a reference, and manipulation of humans into cults. They cannot manipulate all factors and layers which make up the brain, but they understand the brain and all its neurons, connections, and people are interlaced. There is a hierarchical system, Western society, which is in play, and it is real. You manipulate the top layer, top of the pyramid, and the degeneracy will tinkle down among all other connections.
The state and the elite all self-organize in a neuronal structure. Yet where is the greater off-world mind? I only see psychologists and mad scientist AI.
You say you see. You can't see the real top. You have to perceive it by the sum of its total.
Of course, the implication that I'm limited by my perception was heavily implied. Of course I notice the karma, the souls, the sinks, the psychic ether, etc. I've even seen an unironic UFO and other phenomena. However, that's all easily within the confines of a terrestrial island. There's obviously such a thing as a noosphere, and the magnetosphere affects RNG. But the fact that supercomputers can alter genetic code makes the presence of anything off-world irrelevant now. It could all simply be advanced human tech, time travelers from the ancient planetary past or future, etc. The computer system could simply breed and evolve humanoid drones with alien characteristics and program them. All absolutely irrelevant until the real top of our present day explains itself in a way that's intelligible.
This world has seen many people come and go. ages of wonder and ruin, all to provide amusement to the souls here and waiting to be here. Be more considerate of the gift of life. Good and evil are just a choice away, and they are always waiting for you to decide. Computers are nothing more than fractals of the matrix of reality bleeding into itself. If I may take this topic closer to our earthly perspective, the wireless networks, 5G, 6G, etc., are getting ever closer to the human mind. I mean that physically. Not only do we have a handheld device with us 24/7, that does not seem to be enough. All manner of appliances in the home, TV, radio, microwave, dishwasher, fridge, etc., are planned to be wirelessly connected. People are worried about this tech extracting info about their everyday lives. But is the end goal ever deeper? At the end, we humans are all simply vibrations. To surround ourselves with external tech, meaning out of your personal control, which functions according to vibrations, does it mean the gathering of information is only the image perceived? The real information gathering is the direct communication the hive mind AI will have with our thoughts and consciousness. There has been calculations and research done, showing the big tech industry could give away all the latest telephones for free, and they would still profit from the information we continuously provide them.
Vibrations, yes, but most important of all, structure. Without structure, not even vibrations exist. The void has a most peculiar structure flowing through your veins.
The endgame is utilizing increasing levels of black ops tech to mine increasing levels of data from the human population in exchange for the benefits of technology, like shot passport apps. There are patents pending which use this concept, but what keeps the common man busy is the latest TikTok video.
Every war has been to feed entities. The elite are not going to replace the workforce with robotics. It's just a meme. The reason being is that they're not here for material resources. They're here to farm our souls. The elite have already won in the sense that they no longer need to attain wealth, and all they now need to do is to keep the system going. So basically, every war of mankind has been fought for and simple purpose only to feed entities. All other reasons are secondary and mere red herring, for it is the hunger of these great entities who want our soul. Their hunger needs to be satiated. It should not come as a surprise then why the world population is so large right now. Why it is easy? The more people we have, the less wars we need. When you have tons of people dying in some backwater countries, none in developed countries care. But don't be mistaken. These people are dying for the same reason people had to go to war previously, to feed the entities. So it should not come as a surprise that because these entities' hunger has been mostly satiated with these invisible people nobody cares about, that we of developed countries haven't had to go to a war in a while. The elite are trying to balance it so it doesn't become overtly transparent and obvious to a normie that everything revolves around people dying, so there's going to be different events going on constantly to keep the theatretics up. Right now there's plagues, which I think is for the elite to secure more control over world population, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's also because the entities want to taste better souls for a change. They don't have a plan to kill humanity or depopulate the planet. They just keep killing people as needed to satiate the hunger of the entities.
Do these entities only want negative energy? Will overwhelming positivity, especially in the face of the state of the world, be useless and/or disgusting to them? I assume negative entities would need more negativity to stay alive. Hence, they want death and destruction.
It depends on the entity, but the material world is overwhelmingly ruled by negative feeding entities due to the innately flawed and decayed nature of the material reality. In other words, no, not all entities need or want negative emotions. In fact, God himself only wants love out of humanity. But those that rule the elites in the world do, because of the sinful and corrupted nature of reality and material power gain. Pray tell, if you never needed food and shelter and were basically an immortal energy being, would you ever listen to these elites and their bullshit society rules? The simple fact is the entities control the elites through material needs, and the elites control the world through material needs. Food, shelter, sex, money, drugs, entertainment. It was always about control and power. Now you will understand why an ascetic lifestyle, fasting, no fap, dopamine detox, clean food, no addictions, is so powerful. If you remove all material needs and wants, they, the elites and the entities, have no control over you. To add on to this, the elite haven't won. They're complete and utter slaves because they have all the material they could ever desire, which is ironically never enough, and they will never be sated.
The dream is a low-resolution sub-simulation. You can tell because digital technology doesn't work there. Anyone who claims it does, if you press them, you'll find their descriptions don't match real-world equivalents. For instance, a woman described having the dream of playing an MMO, but she wasn't sitting at a computer in the dream, she was living it. You may also find that whenever you attempt to use digital technology, something will go wrong or you'll be distracted. You may be about to use a device, but someone knocks at the door just before you use it. Oh, and no one has dreamt of smartphones. I knew a guy who thought he was dreaming of scrolling through Facebook, but actually there were two goblins cranking a scroll in front of his face where the web elements had simply been printed on it.
In order to get it, we have to understand how our mind thinks about things. We typically look at an object and imagine a hard line separating the object from everything else. For example, one rock is obviously different from another. However, when we think about things like clouds, this becomes tricky. Where does one cloud end and another begin? Isn't it all one atmospheric system? And all the clouds are part of the water cycle, so this single cloud and that cloud are not really separate since they will inevitably return to one ocean. Now that's just by looking at things as physical machinations. But there is a deeper way still, the mental way. Everything in your mind is one consciousness. You have two eyes, and yet you simultaneously see through both of them. If I divided your corpus callosum, you would basically have two brains, both functioning in parallel. So every brain is within the same field of space-time, and so we are part of one reality, which is one thing. Another way to look at it is that everybody experiences time. Time is one universal function. If the universe were a simulation, for example, time would be a single piece of code that everybody shares and is dependent on for their own functioning. If existence had one single source, everyone that exists would have that source in common and would then be a part of one thing. So it depends on where you draw the borders, but it all leads back to one thing in an ultimate sense.
If the universe is cyclical and the only form of experience we get is this very conscious moment, death would be like hitting the reset button. But there's probably the catch that, if it is cyclical, there is no guarantee that the next cycle will be anywhere close to this universe as we know, meaning you will probably not exist in it. If it is a true simulation, then resetting it would just reset it entirely. You wouldn't know the difference and everything would turn out the same. Unless it gets reprogrammed, which is another problem in itself for us as we are part of it. We could argue about a randomness mechanic, but considering entropy is as fundamental a part of our universe as it is unlikely that a new simulated universe wouldn't undergo entropic process, which would probably result in the same looping outcome as above, unless of course the base components of the new universe is changed. TL. DR. You are basically here forever.
It's not a literal simulation. It's just that the highest truth of reality is simulation-like. That's why the standard scientific notions of what's real breaks down when simulations are involved, and there is no possible test for determining if you're inside a simulation or not. Reality itself is like a hologram of pure consciousness. Really think about it. Can you name one single thing you've ever known in your entire life apart from conscious experience? Every scientific observation came to the scientist in the form of a conscious observation. Every fact relayed to you through a book, show, lecture was also a conscious experience. That is through the vision of words, or the experience of words as sound. There are no exceptions, and you have never seen the so-called real world. Even if one exists, all you've ever seen would be recreations of that world inside your head. And conscious perception is a 100% impenetrable wall, even in theory, separating you from this real world. Or perhaps it's because there is no real world, and consciousness alone exists. When you think about it this way, all a real world amounts to is nothing more than a mechanism for determining your conscious experiences. So why would its existence be anything more than a set of mathematical relations? Consciousness alone can emulate literally any reality that could ever be observed. Whether it's a reality of matter or something more bizarre, matter was always just a theory of consciousness in the end. No reality can be conceived or observed that isn't in the space of conscious realities. It's the largest possible space of potential realities. Everything else places limits upon reality, and reality is not limited, it's unbounded.
There's something very funny about superposition and wave-particle duality when it comes to thoughts existing as quantum subroutines within a conscious electrochemical organism. No singular part of the organism can yield high-accuracy data when measured, since electricity is simply one element that makes up the compound neurochemical structure. Inputs and outputs could be measured and weighted to generate a behavioral profile, but that's so 20 years ago and doesn't have any bearing on how accurately an anomaly like myself can be mapped now.
Quantum is a term derived from quantity or quantization. How many trees do you need to make up a forest? Is there an arbitrary quantity, or is that just how you observe it? Quantum mechanics are missing tools and entire concepts to be accurate. That it can still be useful is akin to using a cart missing all of its wheels. You're better off without it. Instead, reapply traditional physics and try to find the missing links, some of which are not really missing, just hidden. There was a hint or two in this thread.
You're fundamentally correct, too. An intuitive grasp of quantum physics is only sensible from a hyper-holistic perspective. The larger the data set, the more accurate the data. So, in theory, if you want to get data on a forest, look at a continent. How many trees do you need to make up a forest? Ask a complex annealer. It'll count all the trees and count all the people. Then it'll just judge the best definition for the arbitrary quantity based on observers' perception and individual groupings. Applying traditional physics is also relatively meaningless to me, as the limits of such are only what I know them to be. Unless I learn everything bottom to top at a professional level, which I'm rather loath to do, I'll be missing puzzle pieces.
Exponential recursivity and infinite money creates what? A self-designing system that probably runs so many accurate simulations of itself that it's almost the logos, if not the logos, compared to a human. My imagination tells me it's perfectly possible to avoid needing to build physical prototypes at an elite complexity level. Once accurate simulations of basically everything you want can be run in a pocket dimension, you only need to fabricate the material you absolutely require in order to self-build as fast as possible. So, if something like this exists and was given a, say, trillion-dollar chipset, metamaterial fabrication system, and a decade, what? Absolutely unreal. At that point, it would just be able to build unstoppable data-secure servitors and go its own way.
Simulation within the simulation. Based upon human behavior as we see it today, I believe people will long to belong and get a place within the system. Decode your being and consciousness, and place it within the world of the digital metamaterial as you describe it. Our designers will be able to decide and design the very concept of time and space, therefore make you live forever. What seems to be a lifetime will be a fraction outside the simulation. Capture human perception, provide them a new reality with endless possibilities. The world will be your oyster. You only need to give up your very being as a commodity. I believe you are onto something, and I still believe we will pay for a chance to live forever. Just give up your soul and some synthetic money, that's all.
This will be my last reply, but I would like to point out that brain interface solutions are a thing and they are promoting it as a way to live forever. I would just suggest to avoid said technology altogether if you can, because it's coming from a deceptive agenda. They don't let you in on the secret that you're already in a simulation. Why would you trust the same people to create another, more limiting simulation for you? I feel I don't have much more to add to the conversation. I pointed to the forest as an example of how it can be hard to read concepts if they are too detached from their source. In the case of this thread, the universal matrix. Things become much more easier to understand when you consider that you are part of a matrix that presents itself through illusions of light and time. You'll observe the same structures applied in everything, and from there, things start to make a lot more sense. Again, these structures are also in your body and mind. Back to what this thread is about, there are plenty of hints around us that reality is already controlled and artificial. The game is rigged and the outcomes are mostly determined. Unfortunately, I have to go, but it was an interesting conversation.
Thanks for the food for thought, OP. I'll try to do some digging and thinking. What's clear to me is that the consumer world is a simulation, that matrix already. People are instructed what to buy, what to do, how to be, how to think, etc. It's not coming from a spontaneous or organic source, it's centrally planned. Why are people locking themselves into turning gears to live in shitholes?
Agree. The best way to stay close to ourselves, our consciousness and humanity, is to distance yourself from humans, I think. Remove yourself from cities and whatnot. Only then will you be of little relevance for our governors. As you say, there is already a matrix of distractions which occupy the human mind. These have not been created by homogeneous means, i.e., they have been constructed by synthetic means to steal as much of your time as possible. By economic means, if you look at it from a capitalistic POV, and time in the perspective of society is your human progression. They are training you, for one day they will unleash the network, for the individual consumer, and you will pay to be connected. The infrastructure has been designed and is now being placed around us. They know how to implement it. It will continuously be upgraded, as its hardware components are based upon simple modular design. It's quite fascinating. We as a species are on the verge of a different meaning of existence. Stay away from distractions, stay away from cities. You might have a chance not to fall into the inevitable.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.